Hello, welcome to another Search with Sean. And again, it's part of our Chat with Sean series, and you'll find a link to all the different chats that we've had recently in the playlist, and there's some really great ones there. And obviously, we cover such a wide range of topics. I'm sure there's something that you'll be interested in. And yeah, I'll get the admin stuff out of the way as usual, and then we'll get on to our great guest. But yeah, generally last week, although I was ill, I still got a chat in, which was great. And it was with Jane Hunt, so the co-founder of the digital marketing agency of JBH, and we're just talking about everything about digital PR. Really great chat. Really learned a lot about, how it all works and what's going on in digital PR, and also about her new book, a digital PR playbook, which I'm actually, by the time this goes out, it'll still be live, but there's a competition on my LinkedIn giving away a couple of the copies of those books. So if you're interested in getting your hands on one of those books, then do give me a follow on LinkedIn, and you'll see how you can enter that competition. Literally just leave a comment on a post. It's not anything rocket science or anything. So it's definitely worth getting involved. And the book's actually really great. I've had a chance to flick through it quite a bit, and it's some really good stuff if digital PR is your thing or you're interested in the topic. And then also been going on about it for a while, but the event Search with Sean Live, which will be a streamed event across YouTube and LinkedIn over, well, it was meant to be 2 days, and now it's going to be probably more than that. But we've got some great talks, great pre-recorded videos from some really great people in the digital marketing world. And yeah, that I say that. So the first dates are being confirmed, and that's the 17th and the 20th of December. So if you you'll find the events on LinkedIn, Search with Sean Live, or they're on Eventbrite as well. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll find out. And I'm about to confirm, because I haven't done it yet, but the speakers that were actually the first couple of people that will be speaking on those days. So stay tuned for that, and you won't be disappointed, because I've already pre-watched them and they're really awesome. So, and they cover such a wide range of topics. It's going to be fascinating. So yeah, won't go on anymore. Our great guest today, I'm sure you know her, because yeah, if you work in this space, you probably will. But I'll give you an introduction, and then we'll get cracking on the topics. So yeah, today I'm joined by Sarah Pokorná. So hopefully I've not missed out too much. Sarah Pokorná, a marketing expert with over 12 years experience specializing in consumer psychology to create strategies that drive conversions and sales. An award-winning consultant and public speaker, Sarah has shared her insights at events like Brighton SEO and Zagreb SEO Summit, and has been recognized at the European Search Awards and the Irish National Startup Awards. And yeah, I've been following your stuff for a long time. I think I've probably seen you at least once at Brighton SEO. So I'm really pumped about this and really excited to have you on. I really appreciate it, even with my dodgy internet and my pronunciations. Hopefully you forgive me. But yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good to be here and really good to be chatting to you. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. The first one I ask every guest, I guess, because of it's always busy in search, but it's definitely busy now. What do you make of the current search landscape? Yeah, just generally, I know it's quite a wide topic.
This is always a tough one, because I always come across as a bit of a Scrooge and a bit negative. But honestly, like, compared to how things were in the past, I am not feeling all that optimistic about how things are going to go in the future. I think that's just because of kind of the way the industry is heading, kind of with the increase of AI, as I'm going to talk about later a bit, some of the dangers of, pumping out this mass-produced content, the way, I wouldn't say everybody, because of course there's some really amazing SEOs out there who I know and really respect, but the fact that kind of we're chasing, rankings and conversions over, is this the right sort of thing that we should be doing for the internet? Is the most ethical thing that we should be doing? So for me, I think kind of if we keep going at this pace and the way that we're going, I don't think that in the future is necessarily going to be all that positive.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting in one side of it, but it's also, as you say, where there's a lot of uncertainty, and obviously when that happens, then obviously, yeah, it's with anything like in life with uncertainty, then some unethical kind of practices start taking place. So that's definitely a good point. And in terms, obviously, there's like, this is your specialty areas. Can you explain what is confirmation bias? Because obviously we hear the term quite a lot, but I'm sure it's a lot deeper than what most of us actually think about it. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear what your take on it is.
Yeah, so confirmation bias is one of the cognitive biases that we have. So like I say this every time, like people are biased. As much as you want to think that you're not biased, you are. Everybody is. It's, you know, part of human nature. And there's certain ways that we take mental shortcuts in order to, you know, kind of help us make sense of the world around us. And one of those is confirmation bias. And as people, we don't like information that kind of changes our mind or goes against our beliefs, because it makes us feel really, really uncomfortable. So when you search out information or when you look for information, humans automatically kind of get drawn to information that confirms their beliefs. So when they go on Google, when they go to search for information anywhere, when they read newspapers, whatever, they're automatically drawn to, you know, the information that backs them up rather than the information that actually changes their mind. And that's how confirmation bias works. You search on Google, you look for information instead of looking for information that, you know, changes your beliefs. If your belief is wrong or something, you're automatically going to, you know, choose ones that confirm your beliefs.
Yeah, and obviously, like with, like you're saying, with algorithms, you know, whether it's on Google or Instagram or nearly everything now has an algorithm that's kind of trying to personalize it to your thoughts and, you know, what you're looking for yourself. So yeah, it's a dangerous kind of, I guess, you know, it's a dangerous part. I've talked about this in other chats, and it's a dangerous path to go down, because then it's just going to keep cementing people's current thoughts, and they're not going to open up about other possibilities. And yeah, that's why like YouTube and stuff, yeah, really interesting. And how do cognitive biases, particularly like you say, confirmation bias, impact the way people search and interpret information online? Obviously, you did touch upon it then a bit, but you know, have you seen the kind of trends and patterns, and how is that actually getting worse? You know, how is it kind of progressing now with, you know, with aggressive algorithms like YouTube and Instagram, especially TikTok, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because there's been quite a few studies into it, but because, you know, social media is still quite a new phenomenon, and so is online search per se, there have not been as many studies into this as maybe there should be, or I would like to see in the future. All of the studies do show that, for example, even on Google, when you're looking for information online, Google will give you the information that you want to, that it thinks that you want to receive, rather than the information that is correct. I did a study on this with the BBC recently into the impact of confirmation bias on the US elections. And we found that, for example, if you typed in, you know, is Donald Trump a good president, or is Donald Trump a bad president? It's exactly the same question. You want exactly the same information, but depending on if you use the word good or bad, it will give you completely different search results. So again, if you say good, you're looking for information about how Donald Trump is good, and therefore it confirms your existing beliefs. And it's even worse on social media as well, because the social media algorithms are basically, you know, designed to give you the content that you're looking for. So if you start, for example, looking at racist content or, you know, fake news, conspiracy theories, that sort of thing, the more you go down that rabbit hole, the more it's going to serve you, you know, that sort of content. And then you're just going to go deep in depth into it and find people, you know, with the same sort of mindset as you on that, or same opinions. And you're just going to, you know, find yourself in an echo chamber rather than actually being able to access true information.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I mean, obviously, some people say, well, at least it's giving more people, you know, if you look purely search, more people a chance to rank for different types of queries. But as you say, really, the same piece of content should be served, you know, the best that answers that particular question, because it's literally the same thing, just worded different. So yeah, it's a really valid point there. That what's the kind of, it's off script a little bit, but just sort of off that, what's the danger of this continue? Obviously, because you could say that really since maybe the start of time, that people have always just talked to people that confirm what they wanted to hear, and not kind of ignore those that didn't really confirm what they wanted. So if this continues, obviously, what's the danger of a society that if this continued in this fashion?
Yeah, I think, you know, people are always going to be biased. They're always going to, you know, want information that confirms their existing beliefs. I think the problem is now that anybody can go and have a platform, because on social media, you can access so many people. You can, you know, things can go viral in a matter of seconds. You have the power now to get that message across to millions of people. And you can see in the COVID pandemic, for example, just how, you know, how divided society was between vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, for example. And that's because each group kind of had their own platform. They could spread everything around. They could spread misinformation, you know, if somebody wanted to. Whereas before, you know, if you wanted to spread information about, you know, your beliefs on COVID, if this was like 100 years ago, it would just be your friendship circle rather than people all around the world.
You're right. I mean, obviously, if like you go on Joe Rogan, within an hour or so, there's like millions of people that have viewed it, and that information's out there already, like as you say. So you don't have to sail across the seas to spread the word and that kind of thing. So yeah, valid point. Yeah.
That once the word is out there, you know, taking it back, correcting yourself is not going to go viral the same as the original news. So, you know, once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, that's really true, actually. I find that really strange when someone gets, you know, rightly or wrongly, like accused or something, and it goes viral and everyone believes they did it or not. And then the truth, well, who knows the truth, but the so-called truth comes out. They and then they just see it kind of nothing happens. You're like tumbleweed, and you're just like, you know, you're so bothered about it initially, and now you don't seem to care. But I guess that's the world we move in. It's such fast moving news. It's just, you know, headlines, and then sorry if I don't know what's going on with the signal, but there's some good information coming out of the chat, so we, you know, that's the main thing. Cool. Yeah, this was interesting. So can you explain the difference between misinformation, disinformation, and malformation, and why these distinctions matter in the digital age? Obviously, with COVID and stuff, I guess this is like really was brought to the forefront around disinformation and misinformation. But yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on those.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'll be honest, it's kind of confusing having three different words that kind of sum up very similar things. So you have misinformation, and that's kind of false information that just spreads around. It doesn't have to be, you know, ill-intended. It's just any kind of false information. Then you have disinformation, which is created deliberately to, you know, mislead people or cause damage. And then you've got malinformation, which is another phenomenon where basically somebody takes a fact and then they take it out of context in order to mislead or manipulate people. And that is kind of the most common way that, for example, you know, you hear about, you know, certain countries running ads to, you know, cause misinformation and stuff like that. Well, that's malinformation. That the most, the easiest way to do, or the most powerful way of doing it, is taking a fact, take it out of context, mislead people, and do it that way. So yeah, that one's quite scary.
Yeah, have you seen, obviously, you just listed a good example. Have you seen kind of other examples of, obviously during COVID, I guess, was one of the main things around that, but any, especially in kind of I guess in marketing sense, if you've got any kind of examples in that world at all, or come to
I think
mind?
I think in marketing, I don't think like people intend to go out so much to misinform in general marketing. I think it's more of a case of, you know, information not being correct and going out with it and stuff like that, and not thinking of the consequences when people, as I said earlier, you know, mass produce content or use writers that are maybe not so qualified. But then when you have marketing, for example, for like political ads and stuff, people do genuinely go out of their way to advertise, you know, fake or misleading information in order to make themselves look good. So rather than talking about, you know, this is something that I was looking at in the elections recently, that a lot of the strategies, instead of, you know, saying what sort of benefit your party will bring to people, all of the social media is bashing other people and taking things out of context, for example, you know, like the Brexit bus or things like that. So I think that's also where the danger lies.
Yeah, I think the problem is that sometimes, like with anything, there's so much information out there that sometimes the truth and the lies and what they all get muddled up, because there's so much information. It's really hard to tell what the actual truth is. So, you know, not many people actually know about any subject, the actual truth. You know, so that's where it gets, you know, confusing, I guess.
Yeah, that one's really difficult as well, because, you know, online, so many people can become an author, and then lots of people just, you know, read the featured snippets, and the featured snippets, you know, don't necessarily have to be true. And that's something I found in the research as well that I did with the BBC. The featured snippets could actually be something, you know, misleading, but it's there. Most people just scan, look at that, look at the first couple of results, and actually don't go through and look at the information that maybe they should be looking at to get a balanced view on things.
Yeah, and I guess obviously if like someone's got a really likable personality, and you know, you just kind of gravitate towards them, and you're like, you end up trusting them more because you like the person, but that doesn't mean that everything they say is the truth. And sometimes people don't question even people that they like, you know, it doesn't matter what industry, but obviously I see that quite a lot where you just presume what any one person says, it's just the truth. That's why everyone feels, but they can get stuff wrong as well. So they need to be vetted as such as well. So
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one. I know it's something you've talked about before. So do SEOs have a moral obligation to counter misinformation, and how can they balance this with commercial pressures? Because obviously that is the main thing, isn't it? Because when you work in sales, you have got to squeeze every bit of positives out of any product or whatever, and you know, because you're trying to compete with like your competitors. So it's a tricky. I talked about this with Julia Panozzo, and obviously that was like a similar topic, and it is a tricky tightrope to step on, because you want to make those sales, but you also don't want to be seen as it can come and bite you down the line, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough one, because, you know, should SEOs have all of this responsibility on their shoulders? No, it shouldn't be our responsibility. You know, I don't think we're paid enough for that. But saying that, we are the ones who kind of almost get to decide what's at the top of Google, because we optimize the content. We want it to be, you know, ranking at the top. And if we do our jobs well, it should be there. So when it comes to writing content and things, I think we do have a responsibility to make sure that the content is correct, to make sure that the content isn't dangerous, to make sure that the client isn't going out with content that probably shouldn't be written just because they want to make a sale. So there are a number of ways that I think, you know, we could counteract these things, because in my time when I used to work as a consultant, for example, I've worked with massive companies who have the strategy just to create everything and anything, no matter really the topic or you know, if they have expertise in that. And most of this content is kind of either outsourced or just written by general copywriters and things. So I think, again, choose the correct writers, make sure that they have expertise on things, because I could write about psychology, I could write about SEO, I could write about SEO tools, for example. But if you ask me to write a article on something more, I don't know, biology based, I don't know how to do that. I'm not qualified to do that, even though, you know, I probably could write it well. So doing that, and also making sure as well, when they're doing these strategies, making sure that they're not, you know, choosing things that probably shouldn't be done, or keywords that probably shouldn't be optimized for, because just because people are searching for something, it doesn't necessarily mean there has to be written about.
Yeah, and I think obviously a lot of it goes on to Google, you know, because the problem is if you are doing, and we know this has happened down the line in SEO, where kind of black hat sort of tactics have paid off, and it's, you know, you've kind of been rewarded for that. Obviously, I know Google always trying to fight against that, but obviously if they start rewarding those who are doing some of these best practices a lot more, then obviously that's going to stamp out all the kind of other behavior that goes on. So, you know, that's the only thing. If you're in the SEO and you're seeing all your competitors doing something, and, you know, your content to come to you and say, look, we've got this idea, you know, but all your competitors do it and you choose not to, and you're still not kind of you're not doing what you need to do then, you know, that's the kind of pressure, I guess, that you're going to be put under. You know, it's but if Google starts rewarding you for not doing it and doing the right thing as such, then obviously more people follow, and that would be the kind of standard of the industries. So I guess, you know, Google have a lot of, and other search engines obviously have the responsibility to make sure that they're being rewarded.
I think so as well. And to be honest, I do feel sorry for Google, because it's such a massive job trying to weed out, you know, everything on the internet, and it's not really their job per se to see if everything's correct. But at the end of the day, as I said, when I was doing this research, sometimes I would look at keywords and there'd be, you know, conspiracy theory websites in the top 2 results, and it had pretty kind of shocking content. So I do think they need to kind of be doing a little bit more and actually be looking into things like confirmation bias and stuff a lot more. But again, I feel for them, because it's not an easy job.
Again, off topic, but I'm seeing these pop up quite a lot, these new news websites that are trying to identify left-leaning, right-leaning, centered stories, and what publications are discussing these topics, and where they usually you know, are they leaning left or right or centered or whatever usually, and this kind of thing. Do you think that's kind of the future, or do you think that's got a bit of that's still got issues? Because, you know, again, it's kind of human perception of what's left and what's right and what's centered, I guess.
Yeah, so I was saying, I think, you know, the way things are now, there's always going to be people on different, you know, sides of the political spectrum, and it's difficult, because, you know, you don't want to squash people's beliefs, and you don't want to say, no, you can't be left, no, you can't be right, because then you know, risk getting into like dictatorship situations and telling people what they can believe. So I think, like, we're always going to have that, and there's always going to be people or websites or stuff that kind of enables more radical thinking on, you know, different sides. I think it just gets to the case where online, you know, it should be a place where you shouldn't have like really dangerous content, or you shouldn't have, you know, really dangerous untrue views that could actually cause, you know, societal issues, a bit like the ones that we saw in the pandemic and stuff like that. So yeah, wish I could come up with suggestions, wish I could find a way of, you know, solving this issue, but I don't think it's going to be possible so easily. But I know some great psychologists who have been working on things like this, and their results are pretty impressive, and the work that they're doing, you know, to try and combat misinformation online.
Yeah, if you got any links for that, that'd be great to have to share in the description after this. That'd be...
Yeah, I will do. I will share with you a link to a book. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it is a really good one about, it's called Foolproof. There we go. About, you know, misinformation and the work that the psychologist is doing to combat that by doing, you know, inoculations of like little bits of misinformation to try and train people how to spot misinformation. So yeah, it's really cool work.
Yeah, no, cool. And I mean, I guess the ultimate thing would be if you search for something, especially if it's like, you know, in a new sort of thing, then there would be like a varied range of viewpoints, you know, not just leaning one way or the other, like from all different viewpoints, also different experts getting involved, you know, and obviously like verification of how you've come up with this information, how you verified it, you know, like BBC have with their BBC verified or whatever. So, you know, these sort of things, obviously clear indication when it's been updated, and authors and what their qualifications are, and, you know, stuff like that. Obviously all that sort of EEAT stuff and all that, that's kind of where that would be the ideal situation, I guess, if you landed on a piece of information. But obviously that's difficult to do, especially at a large scale. So what can SEOs do kind of to ensure that content they produce is or optimize is accurate and responsibly presented? What kind of some of the things they could do?
Yeah, so the first thing I always suggest is working on their digital literacy skills. So this is kind of people's ability to, you know, notice misinformation, learn how to, you know, evaluate different sources and things like that. I would also suggest, you know, like companies don't do this at all, but providing training for their teams on how to, you know, deal with this problem, or getting somebody in who can help them with that. I would also suggest as well that, you know, when it comes to their workflows and content workflows, making sure that they are using writers who are experienced in the topics that they're writing about, rather than just a general copywriter per se. Or if they do use general copywriters, get, you know, a subject expert who can actually go through and make sure that everything is correct. When it comes to, you know, like producing articles from AI's, you know, has been trained on the information that's out there. So there's no guarantee it's correct. And, you know, it likes to hallucinate a lot and think of different things. So, you know, if you're doing a slightly more formal piece, for example, that has studies and stuff, make sure that they exist. Take a look into kind of, you know, the background of that, and just, I would say, be more careful. And also make sure that, you know, when you're doing keyword research and content strategies and stuff like that, do you actually critically evaluate the keywords that you're looking at, rather than just going, oh yeah, this one looks good because it's got low difficulty or high search volume. You think, no, that's not a good keyword. Don't write that.
And if you had like a magic wand, you know, what would you want the likes of Google and Search GPT? How would you want them to kind of present the information? Especially, I'd like to get your thoughts on, obviously, Reddit, yeah, taking over kind of search results. So that probably makes things a lot more interesting in your area. But yeah, what would be your dream scenario, I guess?
Yeah, so from like a psychology point of view, the whole Reddit thing is an absolute disaster, because again, it just helps form echo chambers. And when it comes to, for example, like medical misinformation, you don't find healthy people on forums complaining about their illnesses. You always find, you know, sick people. And then you can have people who genuinely do need mental health support and stuff like that, you know. You know, complaining about their conditions or suggesting medical advice and things when, you know, said conditions might not need that. So there's lots to say about my views on Reddit. So if I could wave a magic wand, get rid of Reddit from the top of the search results, because yeah, they're a bit dangerous. I would also as well like Google to start labeling misinformation more. They're starting to do it in English speaking markets. But when it comes to the Czech Republic, for example, if you type in, is ADHD caused by sugar? There's no warnings on it saying, you know, no, it is not caused by sugar. And the top results are mum blogs saying, yes, it is. Sugar's to blame for everything. And that's literally a quote from the top of the SERPs in the Czech Republic, that sugar is to blame for everything. So they need to understand that they have a responsibility in markets that are maybe not so mature knowledge-wise on certain subjects, so that they can help, you know, educate people on stuff, you know, that is scientifically correct. stop changing the, the search snippets that you get up there from, what people put in as their meta descriptions, to just pulling something out of the article. Because again, when I've been looking into this, I've seen you, for example, type in, is ADHD caused by sugar versus is ADHD not caused by sugar? They'll take the same article and they'll pull out completely different, meta descriptions or search snippets from it to confirm your existing belief, even if it's like medically or scientifically wrong. So I think that is what I would do to begin with, and then they can focus on doing more, but get the basics right.
And what do you think of like Search GPT and other sort of AI LLMs? So obviously, because when they start getting to know you, obviously they start. It looks like they kind of twist the kind of answers based on what they think you're gonna want to see. Obviously, so again, I guess it's a similar thing to the search engines where obviously they need to sort of have some sort of training in terms of like having that sort of centered sort of viewpoint, I guess. Yeah.
Again, I'm going to be a bit of a Scrooge, but I don't really like them, because having looked into and studied kind of how AI is biased and the sort of things that they come up with, if you do want a well-rounded, viewpoint on something, don't go to an AI solution, because, it's not been trained on, minority voices. It's not been trained on, different language content. It's not been trained on, inclusive content or correct content or anything like that. It's just been, taken everything and incorporated the worst of everything as well. So yeah, just be careful with that.
Yeah, I mean, I do use it, but obviously you can clearly see it's got, like you just said, and most people are going to like stuff that kind of agrees or kind of like does what they would prefer them to do. Obviously, but obviously, like you say, it's not going to give you a very level sort of viewpoint. So it's a tricky one. I'm sure they're doing stuff to train them up on those important points you put, but yeah, it's going to be tricky. So how does social identity theory explain the sharing and acceptance of misinformation online?
Yeah, that's a good question. So social identity theory is actually one of my favorite psychological theories, because it kind of helps, make sense of the social world and why people behave the way that they do. So just to explain kind of what it is, people have their identities, and that's how, your personal identity. But they also have what's called a social identity as well. And that's kind of when you go out with people, you make friends with like-minded people. You want to, form little groups, friendship groups, depending on kind of what sort of interests you have or what sort of views you have around the world. When people fall into these different groups, they start to categorize different people. So this is where you have, for example, I always give this example of cat people versus dog people, or as I said before, vaxxers versus anti-vaxxers. And the problem is when you start putting people into these groups, people start realizing the differences between these groups, and they start preferring groups that are like them and disliking groups that are not like them. And that's where you have kind of stereotyping comes in. You compare themselves to your group, and people get their sense of self-worth from having their social identity and being part of these groups. So when people want to share information, they're doing it for the kind of like the social boost that they get out of it. So studies have shown as well that people actually share misinformation, even knowing that it's incorrect, because they will, it forms part of their social identity, and they want to, share it with their friends and get that sort of, push from it. So yeah, it shows that, the way people search and the way people share information is a bit messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that. I mean, and social media, it's got plus points, but obviously it has kind of accelerated that kind of, obviously, that social sort of persona that people try and keep up with and are so concerned about. And I get it, I get it. I'm on YouTube now, so obviously I get it. But generally, obviously if we all didn't have so much of that, I think the world would probably be a better place where we didn't have so much pressure on ourselves to have to do that kind of thing. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, and what lessons can marketeers, SEOs learn from fields like psychology to create more ethical, effective content strategies? Obviously, psychology is like a really interesting space, but yeah, what kind of take-ups would you say people can look into if you're an SEO and you don't really know much about psychology? Where can they look at to get inspiration?
Yeah, I'd suggest just being open-minded to it, because it's surprising the number of people in the SEO industry that, for example, don't seem to think that, you know, psychology has something to do with SEO, but, you know, we're trying to get people to do what we want. We need to understand the motivations and the way that they work in order to get those conversions or write content that, you know, resonates and gets clicks and stuff like that. So I would suggest I would say there's so much information out there. It's kind of difficult to suggest a single source, but I would definitely say if you're going to look for books on psychology, make sure that they're written by a psychologist or somebody with qualifications in psychology, because there's a lot of information out there that's kind of written by pseudo-science people, and that's especially true in the marketing world. I see that an awful lot on LinkedIn as well. You'll also, as well, another great resource is Google Scholar, because you can actually go and read research that has been done on different, you know, search aspects or different aspects of marketing. And then you can actually get, you know, scientifically proven techniques to use in your SEO and stuff like that. So I'd say those two to begin with.
Yeah, Google Scholar is a great resource. So, and you know, if you don't think psychology is a thing in marketing, then you only have to look at governments and see how they use psychology quite a lot to get the message across and to do certain things. So yeah, just, you know, there's proof there if you have any doubts. So yeah, can you provide some examples how cultural missteps in branding have negatively impacted campaigns? I think this is something you've covered quite a lot when I've
There are so many examples of this, and I think people forget to do cultural research a lot before they expand into different markets, because it could be, you know, something as easy as kind of like a name meaning something, you know, rude in a different language. You know, it's one example that I can give you is, for example, like the Pokemon Pichu. In Czech, it means a four-letter word beginning with C. So yeah, so again, that Pokemon is laughed at a lot out here just because of the name. You also have, for example, like Renault, the cars, they're known as the vagina cars in the Czech Republic, because I can't remember the name of it, the shape that looks like that. That's how people draw vaginas in this country. So it looks like their logo is one. And then, for example, you've had different things, for example, where colors have backfired. So Just Eat's branding up in Northern Ireland got a bit of bad press because they went out with the color orange. And in Northern Ireland, you have to be very careful when you use the color, you know, orange or green. So yeah, they decided to change their branding back to red. I'm not sure what it is like now, but that happened. And also, you know, Orange, the phone provider, they had the slogan, "The future's bright, the future's orange." They went out with that in Northern Ireland, and it has been a joke ever since, because out there it would mean the future's bright, the future's Protestant, which again, you know, yeah, not a good one. And there's so many examples of things like this in different countries as well. So just be careful.
Yeah, no, really great point. I didn't even know about those examples, but yeah, I'm like you say, thinking about it, there's probably so many more. Yeah, and even if, you know, it's not even just language kind of, you know, thing, you know, even as you say, Northern Ireland, a good example, but even America and England, you know, there's going to be differences there in the way that we interpret different things and words, and yeah, it's you know, it's totally different. So yeah, it's yeah, fascinating, and something you know, if you are expanding on internationally, you shouldn't just be thinking about if they're going to like the product or not. You need to think about everything in that sense. So you were just to the last few points here, and it's been a really great chat, and obviously we had some technical thoughts, but I'll take the blame for that. But it's still been a fantastic chat. So how do you balance the need for local relevance with maintaining global brand consistency and international SEO? Obviously, we touch upon it, but what would you say if you were going to expand globally? What kind of steps would you take to kind of mitigate against just the kind of examples we just listed out there? So what would you do? Obviously, what kind of steps?
Like, if you're a big brand, I think this is where kind of global consistency, you need to kind of throw it out the window a little bit, because there are, you know, brands out here that, for example, have completely different names. So I know that, for example, we have Lay's crisps, and yeah, I can't remember what it's called in the UK, but it's something different.
Yeah, Walkers.
That's it, Walkers. And for example, like, I think Shaw deodorant in the UK is called Rexona out here. So again, these are you know, changes that have been made to make it more, you know, relevant to the market. So again, when you do that, even, you know, I've seen brands go out with really rude kind of names for some of their products just because they wanted to keep it consistent. So yeah, you need in international SEO, you need to make sure that your brand is relevant locally. It needs to resonate like a local brand, otherwise you're not going to succeed. So this is where you need to kind of really, really localize what you're doing, rather than, you know, going big on one single global strategy and one single global, you know, idea.
Yeah, I guess obviously if you've got the money, if you are going to go global, then you should go to actually the location, do your actual field research, and if possible, hire a local, you know, resident who actually knows this knowledge, and not, because you could still, like we know, like we've discussed in this chat, you could still get it totally wrong just by researching it online or on using AI. It still give you the wrong kind of ideas. So yeah, you need to actually go there, I guess. That would be the best thing.
You do. And even if you're a smaller brand, I always suggest that, you know, it's always better to like start small and maybe go out with one market and do it properly than going out with 10 different markets and just, you know, half-assing it.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, just to finish off, what is there much coming up for yourself? Have you got any sort of talks coming up or events you're going to be? I know you've just been in San Diego, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Any more stuff coming?
I'll be honest, I have nothing until after Christmas, and I am so happy about that, because it's been a manic conference season from kind of like September onwards. So I'm really happy that I get to have a bit of a rest. Next year, I've already got a few events planned. So for example, speaking in Vietnam in March, and also speaking at SEO Vibes in Poland in May. For now, and hopefully I'll be able to get some more booked as well, because I'm sure I have the travel bug. Well, I kind of all do already, you know, love-hate relationship with all of the travel.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. You know, you're going everywhere, so that's great.
Mm.
Yeah, so just leave it with yeah, thank you, Sarah, for joining me today. It's been really great. I mean, I've learned a lot, so many great examples there. And obviously, if people are interested in the topic, then I'll put all your details so people can follow you and see your work. But yeah, thanks for joining me today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.